So we had a few days away planned in Weston-super-Mare, and not somewhere we'd been before. So I was quite excited to obviously see some new places and the like. Our visit was cut a bit short due to circumstances. So we'd planned about 7 or 8 days away, and it ended up being about 3.5. We had to come back home for various reasons. So knowing that it was going to be a shorter break than planned, I thought I'll make it a really kind of, well, what I thought of as kind of just a bit of a cheapskate event photographically. And I thought I'll take 2 Micro Four Thirds cameras and I'll just see how I get on with the 2 of them. Kind of a little bit of a comparison thing, I suppose. And the 2 I decided to take were the Lumix G6, which is, you know, I kind of think of it as my cheap travel camera. I can't remember how much I paid for it now, but it wasn't much, something just over £100, I think. And it does a good job for that sort of money. And the camera I took to compare it with is another Lumix, the GX7, which I kind of think of as one of my go-to kind of street town type cameras. So I kind of use them in different ways. One as, you know, my G6 as kind of the thing I put in my rucksack if I'm cycling, and the GX7 in town more. But I think they're both good cameras. I can't remember what year they came out. I'll put it on the screen. They're both very much of the same kind of generation. So I knew this trip was going to be a mix of kind of some beach stuff, probably. We were near a nature reserve, so I thought there might be some nature stuff a little bit, and of course some town urban stuff as well. So I thought these 2 cameras actually should suit quite well. The only thing they don't have is weather sealing. So I was planning on, I was banking on good weather really, and I have to say we were fortunate. Not only did we get good weather, we got some amazing light. The kind of the skies were quite foreboding at times, and there were a couple of really heavy showers, but that sort of light, you know, once the sun breaks through and the clouds start to move and stuff, was really good. So from that perspective, did really well. And these 2 cameras, although they, you know, they are of the same generation, they look and feel quite different. The G6, it kind of feels a bit sort of like cheap and plasticky. And it's easy to use, easy to pick up, and just does stuff. To be honest, I find all of these these G cameras, and I've had the original G1, G2, G3, GH2, G6, G80. So I've had a load of them, and they all feel a bit kind of cheap and plasticky to me. They feel lightweight, whereas this GX7, in the same way as the GX1, it feels metal, it feels solid, it feels far more robust. In truth, they weigh a very similar amount. This weighs 404 grams, the GX7, and the G6 weighs 386. But you wouldn't think it to feel them. You know, this feels much more robust, a much higher quality product. But there you go. There's a couple of things they both kind of have in common, which is one of the features they both have in common. I mean, they're both 16 megapixel cameras, blah, 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 blah. Specs are available elsewhere, detailed specs, I'm sure. They both have electronic shutter option, which I like, particularly if I'm somewhere where I just don't want to make a noise. So I like the electronic shutter, being able to switch into that. They both have that. They both have good rear screens, good LCDs, pretty good anyway for the year. Both pretty good LCDs, both pretty poor EVFs, I think. So I'm kind of not really. I mean, this thing has this, you know, this tilting, flippy EVF thing, which is, yeah, it's quite nice. So of course, this also, the GX7 also has the tilting screen. So you've not only got tilt EVF if you want it, you've got tilt screen if you want it. Whereas the G6, of course, has the flip out screen. That, I think, is one of the biggest differences between the two. So this one, the G6, you can obviously use for vlogging, and it does have a mic jack as well. It has a mic jack input on the front there, so you can actually use this for vlogging, and it's touch screen as well. They're both touch screen. GX7, no use for vlogging whatsoever because you can't see yourself. Both have about a similar sort of battery life, not very good. That, just to say, that tilting EVF here, I've never used it. It sounds good, and maybe you know, maybe I would use it, but I never have. So what lenses did I take? Trying to keep this as a bit of a cheapskate event. I took this, which is my oldest Lumix lens, 14 to 45. I think it's actually quite a good lens, 14 to 45. It's lightweight, covers a good range, just a very useful sort of lens, and I think it's pretty reasonable quality from that. Pretty sharp enough for me anyway. I took the relatively massive 14 to 140, which becomes even more massive. I think that's a similar sort of age to the 14 to 45. I've not had it that long, I've had it a year or so, and I bought it specifically again to stick in the rucksack when cycling, just because it covers a massive range. It's actually reasonable quality. I don't think it's great, but it's not too bad, and as I say, it covers a massive range. And the only other Micro Four Thirds lens I took with me was the little Olympus 17mm, and that's kind of my favourite-ish urban and town camera. And I was very surprised just how sharp the images were taken with this on either of those two Lumix cameras. I think this is a really good lens, really pleased with this. This isn't quite as cheapskate as the others, but they're not massively expensive. Did I pay £130 or something for this one? I don't know, I'll look it up. Second hand, obviously. But yeah, hopefully as we've gone through there, you've seen some of the results. And that's kind of part one of the Western trip, is the Micro Four Thirds angle. There is a part two, maybe up next, you never know.